question you may ask yourself is, are you taking the right medications? Today on our podcast, I'm pleased to welcome Veronika Litinski, who is president and CEO of one of our partners called Pillcheck. Pillcheck does a genetic test called Pharmacogenetics that gives us a clear outline of what medications work and which ones don't based on our genetics. An interesting statistic is over 78% of the time, medications that people were taking prior to taking this test had to be changed based on their genetics. I've personally done it. We've had many of our members done it, and it's great to have a roadmap to know what medications work for your genetic makeup. Feel free to reach out to our navigation team to connect you with Pillcheck so that you can have this valuable test done for you and your family. Sit back and enjoy today's show. Great. Hi, Veronika.
Hi, Kevin. Great to see you.
Yeah, how you doing?
Doing very well. It's nice to have spring warm weather here in Ontario.
Yes, exactly. And you're joining us from Dundas, Ontario. So again, thanks so much for joining us. And I was reminiscing the last time you and I met, which was over a dinner prior to Advika and Pillcheck coming together. But obviously that dinner was some success for both of us, but it was quite a while ago, right? So.
Well, I guess maybe consistency is a sign of mastery, because I continue with the same business of personalized medicine and bringing advances in science and digital health to wider universe of people. And with launch of Advika, you kind of taken your passion for health to broader world of benefits too.
Yeah, I think, when I look back at, you as a great partner of Advika, and, when I look back, it's you and I both have similar interests, as you just stated, and that's helping people lead healthier and happier and more productive lives. And I think if at the end of the day, we can do that for people through us working together and working with other partners, then we've got a great purpose in life, right? So, yeah.
Very much so.
So for the benefit of our listeners, Veronika, would you mind just giving a little background, whatever you care to share?
About myself?
Yeah, personally. That'd be great.
Well, I live with a dog and a child and a spouse in a small town in Ontario. I am professionally sort of a hybrid. So my first education was in science, and I worked as a medicinal chemist with the Lawrence Livermore lab in California for a while, and then decided to move into corporate finance. So I worked for a couple of large banks in the States, and became very interested in how science and advances in science actually make it into the real world. And so for the last little over 2 decades, I've been really in the innovation world, helping technology and the invention in the medical arena to become widely used and used in a scaled way. So the kind of things that I typically would be available in the most advanced research setting, my mission in life is to make them available to everyone and make it accessible and affordable to large numbers of people.
Oh, excellent. Good. Yeah, you know what? I actually was listening to a podcast earlier today, and what you were saying reminds me of the similar message, that basically taking all science, and in this individual's case, it was biology, and then how to make that real to the real world, right? And useful to the real world. So hats off to you, because, to bring those two things together is often very difficult. So that's excellent.
Yes, very true. It's, I often compare health industry to airline, because it's always a service experience that we have as a patient, but as a person struggling with a health condition, I'm not really a normal person. My priorities are different. And we need to really recognize and bring a lot of empathy to this kind of industry.
Yeah, for sure. And how you briefly touched on it, but how did you make that bridge? I'm interested. How did you make the bridge from, let's say, the science and the scientific, and then you were in capital markets, and then how did you then bridge that over to the health sector?
Well, so the leap from science into business as a young woman for me was very easy. I thought everything I learned in the MBA program was really, really kind of piece of cake in comparison to quantum chemistry and structural chemistry I studied before. The big adjustment I had to make, and young people who got into universities and now thinking about where to go from that place, and often ask me that question: how do you make the transition? What's different about being in a research field versus business? And I really see business as a great uncontrolled experiment where we're all trying to do our best based on rules, you basically proceed on the premise and facts that are available to you. And in science, we have ability to control our setting. So it was very much a revelation for me, going from a very rigorous academic setting to investment banking, where you make decisions based on analysis, but let's say your analysis, there's a lot of assumptions in that analysis.
Yes.
And it also, that work got me interested in really comprehending how we think and how different types of thinking help organizations or sometimes hinder our decision making. And I became a huge fan of using collaborative practices to attack really complex problems. So a few years ago, I married a Canadian man. We moved to Canada, and I ended up working at the Mars Center, downtown Toronto, which is very well known for its innovation programs, and also really taking in that collaborative approach, tackling sometimes very difficult problems. And so that's been kind of a red line, I guess, in my personal and professional choices. And I very much enjoy working across expert domains and bringing perspective from different worlds to put together a new solution.
Yeah. And that's, of course, that's what Mars is all about. We're a big fan of Mars, and we've met many great partners, including yourself, through that great organization. And I agree. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the more we can collaborate to help people or to come up with the very best solutions, and in our case, the very best health solutions, I think you're much better off through collaboration than doing it alone, which is what you've done.
Yes, very much true. And truthfully, Kevin, ultimately, I think myself as a student of nature. And if you look at our body, it all works in concert. There's no debate between your liver and kidney, who is more important, or whether kidney is more useful. You kind of need both.
You need everything.
So I'm thinking about any successful organization or undertaking, it really finds a way to incorporate those varied views, functions, perspective for the benefit of the whole.
Yeah, excellent. So again, you're helping many of our members, and we thank you for that on a daily basis through your services. So can you just share with us the next step is how you ended up at Pillcheck and why you're passionate about what your organization does?
Yes, thank you for this question. So just a little bit about Pillcheck and why is it important. So Pillcheck is a service available through Advocate, which is based on the science of pharmacogenetics. And as the word implies, we're dealing with pharmacological information and genetic information. Why is it important for anyone. Um, the same way as we look different, our body types are different, our color of our hair is different, we're also different on the inside. And what it means, if someone is prescribed medications, that a particular type of medication that may work very well for one person may not work for you in exactly the same way, or it would, so you may need to have a different medication or adjust a dose. And the reason is, you can say, our ancestry. In fact, 95% of people have some genetic variations affecting drug response. So if I would say out of all Advocate members, pretty much everybody is different. And where it comes into play is if someone had a medical condition that's diagnosed and you're looking for pharmaceutical therapy to fix the problem, that pharmaceutical, that molecule has to be present in your body at a specific concentration. And if your body processes the medication too quickly or too slowly, it just won't work at a standard dose. So you would need an adjustment, higher, lower. And as you can imagine, the moment you start taking 2 medications, which is quite common for someone who had, say, cardiovascular issues, we typically prescribe 3 pills at once. So if you're one of those people, which is a lot of people after 40, chances are that some of your therapies would not work for you, assuming you're an average person, because nobody is really average. So Pillcheck service includes a DNA analysis. So we're taking saliva from your cheek swab. It's a kit that you receive at home. Then you send it to our partner lab, and the lab performs the analysis, and then your DNA data is reviewed in the context of your medical care by a specially trained clinical pharmacist. So it's someone who is not trying to sell you more pills, but really is on your side, advocating for your health and helping any physician or specialist that you might be seeing in Canada or outside of Canada to really choose a therapy that works best based on your unique DNA profile.
Yeah, so I mean, I've had the test done, as many of our members have as well, but I've had it done myself. And you know what it really did for me, just what you said, but it basically listed these medications work for you and these medications don't. And you know, from my perspective, I look at that as personalized medicine, right? In other words, personalized, because I think I'll say the old days of medicine where one size fits all. You know, where let's say a certain a medical professional will prescribe the same type of cholesterol medication to every patient, or the same type of blood pressure medication to every patient. And you know, the value that I see in your program is that it's genetically based, first of all, and it's based on your genetics and what will work and what won't work based on your genetic makeup. Is that a fair way of explaining it?
Yes, that's a great way to explain it. And since the word genetics came up, let me put it into little context. So if you think about genetics, it's like a big book with sort of like a War and Peace of biology. So lots of content there. And with the Pillcheck program, we're looking at a very small subset of your DNA that is relevant only to processing medications. So we're not looking at your ancestry or predicting potentially risk of any medical condition. So that's by choice. We recognize some people maybe don't want to know those things. And we also want to make the service very, very affordable, but using the most cutting edge advanced science.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we also do at Pillcheck, we recognize that because it's your DNA, you don't need to repeat this test. You do it only once. And we retain the DNA analysis. And over time, as new evidence comes up, new medications come to the market, we update your Pillcheck report. So you're always up to date in terms of your predicted response to medications available for prescribing in your in Canada, say. And another small point that may be of interest to you and me, because we also work in the group benefits market. So ethnicity and race are both concepts used in medicine as a way of categorizing people of shared ancestry and physical traits. And specific thing like drug response, we're dealing with it with Pillcheck. So drug response varies from person to person because of our ancestors' exposure to the very types of foods and plants that they ingested. So somebody with ancestry from Southeast Asia will have a very different genetic makeup versus somebody like me who comes from Northern Europe. And in order for our bodies to use some medications properly, the cells in our bodies must make a few chemical changes that convert them into an active form, just like we do with the food we eat. And so genetic variations in any population exist on a spectrum, making every person unique. So by bringing Pillcheck into the workplace programs, we're really addressing kind of very old inequities that unfortunately creeped into our practices in medicine, maybe unconsciously, because by its very nature, Pillcheck and benefits reflects the unique health needs of individuals with ancestry from different parts of the world.
Yeah, you bring up a very good point. And as you mentioned, I've been in the benefits business over 30 years, and I just think of how many people are likely on medications or have been on medications that perhaps aren't working or aren't working as effectively as an alternative medication. I mean, when I look at, and one of the reasons we added your company to our platform is because of your scientific approach to it. But B, personally, I look at it and I say, why wouldn't everybody get this test? Like, I mean, we've all heard stories of people that, let's say situations where they're hospitalized for some reason. Let's say somebody has an infection or and then I'll say by trial and error, certain medications are prescribed and maybe one doesn't work and then another doesn't work. And then lo and behold, one works. Whereas if you've done the Pillcheck, your type of genetic testing, pharmacogenetics in the first place, they're going to know what would work and start with that one, the most likely solution, right? So I think, the other way, which I think is super important, is the cost savings that you can drive, I'll say, out of our whole system, like out of, employee benefits customers, hospitals, everything. I just think it's such a valuable test. Question for you: why at a consumer level and for our advocate members, why is it important? Like, I'm saying everybody should have this done. Can you give us a synopsis? Why do you believe it should be done? And along with that do you have any stats on when somebody does the test, the percentage of medications that they should perhaps change to an alternative medication?
Certainly. So you described it perfectly, Kevin. When my mom asks me what kind of business you're running, I tell her I'm in the business of time. And I'm not really cheeky about that, but we really, with the Pillcheck on hand, people feel better sooner because they're on the right medication. It's really that simple. And all the time potentially wasted on, doctors sometimes call it medication misadventures. That's what we're addressing. We're addressing the mismatch between the medication that's prescribed and your actual biology, what goes on inside of your body. And we've done recently actually about nine months ago, we published results of a clinical trial. It was a randomized clinical trial using Pillcheck program for people with moderate depression and anxiety. And that study showed that our product accelerates recovery for people by about 12 weeks. So there was a spread between 9 to 13 weeks. And really what this study showed that trying a prescription drug first without pharmacogenetic guidance is a bit of a lottery because specifically in mental health, only about 40% of people get the right drug on the first try. And once a person fails to get the relief from a first medication that they were prescribed, the chance of recovery actually diminishes. And having Pillcheck on hand really addresses this problem head on.
Yeah, I'll just share a personal situation. Is a number of years ago, I was actually training out west, and I nicked my elbow on some sort of plant, or I was either bitten or something. Anyways, it became infected, and they were quite worried. You know, first of all, they gave me antibiotics, and then they actually gave me some IV. And it didn't work. It wasn't working. And they were very concerned because it was potentially traveling and could turn into flesh-eating disease and that type of thing. And the way I fixed it is I actually went to another doctor, and that doctor said, oh, all these other prescriptions they've been trying are all the same, they're all one family. So I'm going to give you another family. And I think, you know, to using your example, that if I had pharmacogenetics done, which I don't even know if it existed then, it probably did somewhere, but it probably cost about $10,000 at the time. But if I had that, then I clearly would have known, and the doctor would have known what works and what doesn't work. You know, it's just such a valuable test.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, Kevin. And the other side of it that I find also critically important for people who really want to feel like they're, you know, a bit of a CEO of your health, that you really understand what's going on. And so typically our clients are people who are proactive. They want to be informed and kind of stay on top of things. So the big part of our service is a medication review with a clinical pharmacist, because evidence shows, and we see in practice, that DNA test alone is not enough, because there has to be kind of a connection there between, okay, here's the result, and now physician who may not be as familiar with genetics actually needs to know what to do with that new information. And it's very common when people get their Pillcheck done, they get it for a reason. Let's say they were prescribed something for anxiety, and then when they get into it deeper, they say, oh yes, and sometimes I also take Tecta for digestion, and I also take this vitamin when I feel like. So all those things actually truly going down the same hole. And when pharmacist looks at your DNA together with everything you're ingesting in pill form, they can truly guide not just you, but also your physician or your healthcare provider, nurse practitioner, in terms of what's the best treatment for you. And sometimes the recommendation is the best treatment for you is not to take pills, because it will be very difficult for you to actually find a medicine that would address this problem precisely. What we're achieving with the Pillcheck is really bringing an individual and the healthcare provider to the same page. So they see the same information, and they can make a decision together what's the best treatment path for me as a person.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. You touched a bit on depression and anxiety. How does Pillcheck help people with a bigger category? I'll just say mental health issues, because my experience and our experience with mental health is generally they'll prescribe what they feel is the best medications. And then it's a very long process, because if it's not working, I'll say they tweak it. Like after 30 days, they'll say, well, let's tweak it. And now how are you feeling? Oh, still not 100%. Okay, let's tweak this, right? And it could literally take months or years till they actually get the right combination of medications. So I'd be interested to know how Pillcheck can help in the mental health space.
Right. So Pillcheck covers about 70% of everything prescribed in Canada. And we have over 55, let me get the number, 60 medications that are routinely prescribed to treat a wide range of mental health conditions. So we have very good coverage there. And we also have quite a few consulting pharmacists on our roster who specialize in more complex conditions like bipolar, ADHD, difficult to treat depression. So it's definitely a very, very powerful tool to consider if somebody is looking at mental health treatments. What we also, because this is such a big area for us, I had the privilege of being briefed by people who work in psychiatry, mental health, and it's one of the areas of personalized medicine that is very well evolved, and evolved in the sense that there are established clinical guidelines recommending to psychiatrists how to prescribe using genetic information. So sitting here at 22, I would say it's just a good medical practice to consider a person's genetics when looking at potential pharmaceutical treatment for the individual with a mental health condition. Another thing about mental health is that we categorize people by condition, but there's more emerging evidence that our categories and diagnosis, they're getting better, but they're not yet truly precise, reflective of biology. And it's often an experience of a person that they had one mental health condition, and look, 5 years later, they have another one. Seems like lottery, bad luck. But in fact, there's something in their wiring that it's not lots of different conditions. It just, that's how they're built. And with appropriate support, they can function very, very well. And especially in the pandemic, I think we're kind of sitting on a bit of a time bomb as far as the intensity and frequency of mental health concern in our society overall. And we're seeing currently a bit of a preference to steer people towards digital therapy, such as CBT, over initiation of drug therapy in many wellness and disability claims programs. But what evidence really shows is that, yes, therapy such as CBT is undeniably helpful, but utilization and engagement rates are very low for people who are truly struggling to get over their symptoms. It's just hard for a person who can't get out of bed to start, engaging with therapy in a wholesome way. And so international research studies using large data sets show that to achieve recovery for moderate depression, it's best to start with a precise and personalized pharmaceutical treatment so choice of therapy guided by pharmacogenetics, especially the dosage, because dose is so important. And then once the person gets better, they can engage in therapy, whether in person or using digital tools. And then CBT and other therapy is actually very helpful to wean off medications and bring person back to health. So it's really the combination of both pharmaceutical treatments and therapy that achieves the best results in mental health.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what, hats off to your organization, because you just think of, there's been a huge influx of mental health claims, especially in the whole insurance industry, and disability claims. It's one of the biggest issues that insurers are dealing with now. So anything that can be done to help people get the right solution, the quickest solution, and the personalized solution that will work for them, is everybody's going to win by it. So there was a psychologist I recall talking to probably about a year ago, and I was actually telling him about pharmacogenetics and saying, you can get this on all your patients, and he wasn't aware. Like, he actually said, really? Like, how do we get that? And so of course I mentioned Pillcheck and our company and everything else, but so I think a year later, probably it's probably a lot more common than it was then. But as I said earlier, I believe it's a test everybody should get.
Well, thank you for saying that. I believe that too. The awareness is expanding. What we're finding that there's a little bit of a finance barrier. So often the people who are already on disability, they may have hard time actually paying $500 for a test. And we've been building very substantial evidence for insurance companies and plan sponsors to provide economic justification for coverage. And so this evidence is building up, and what we're finding, I share with you the highlights. So what actually drives cost savings, and why is it worthwhile at the organizational level? So let's say you're a company with 100 employees. Very likely about 25%, so 25 people will be making some kind of drug claims. It varies depending on the organization. Let's use that number. And what we see from our practice, that anyone who has been just diagnosed with a condition that requires pharmaceutical therapy, likely chronic condition, or someone who is considering pharmaceutical therapy for symptoms of anxiety, depression, or somebody who is already taking 2 or 3 medications. These are all good candidates for Pillcheck. And but we also see in the workplace that HR groups, employers, they don't necessarily want to get involved into deciding, should I give Pillcheck to Kevin or should I give it to Veronika? So a better model is to provide coverage for Pillcheck, and people who really need it opt in. We don't really see among our clients people getting it purely for entertainment purposes, because it takes quite a bit of actions, right? You have to do your cheek swab, you have to read your report and have a conversation with the healthcare provider. And I've been involved in health innovation for a while now. One thing I know for sure is, if people are not ill, they don't want to talk about medicine. And so we rolled out the program for group benefits, where it's available as a subscription at a fixed utilization rate. And we set this utilization rate based on what we see as an experience with this kind of organization. So it's typically in the neighborhood of 10-12%, and it's never really been exceeded yet, because that's kind of the makeup of working population. These are the people who really need it, and the benefit to the plan sponsor is you're already paying drug benefits, might as well pay for drugs at work. That's one. And second, as you described, Kevin, when someone is on the wrong medication, it's just a nightmare for the person, for the workplace, for their family, and you really want to fix it as quickly as you can.
Yeah, and I would say, and the third point would be it'll avoid people going off or being off on disability, which is even a bigger cost to the organization, right? In manpower and having to hire someone else, and just the pure disability costs. So it just makes a lot of sense. So lastly, I'd just like your opinion on where you see this going into the future. Like, what do you see as the future of pharmacogenetics, and looking down 3, 5, or 10 years down the road?
Well, what we see happening, so we work in Canada and also in Europe. So we supply our service through a distribution partner in the EU. And we've been kind of keeping track of genomic programs around the world. So with the pandemic now kind of entered people's awareness, more people want to talk about medical things or feel like they can provide an opinion on those things. So it's been, in general, elevated awareness in terms of yes, biology is complicated, and it's worthwhile personalizing treatments. So what we see across the board is greater willingness and awareness to use digital tools to take care of my health and my family health, and be really in the driver's seat in terms of what's available to me and how quickly I can get what I need to get well.
Yeah, and I would say, to echo it, it's right medications at the right quantity at the right time, right? That's in a nutshell, I think, if I can summarize kind of what you do, or people with a health ailment, health issue, it's the right medication, right quantity, and at the right time, right? And to get them back quicker and sooner and get them feeling well.
Yes, 100%. And you ask, so where I see this going? Pharmaceutical industry is global, but genetics is local. So we see the same sort of molecules being marketed in Europe, in Canada, across North America. But the effectiveness really varies on the individual level. So we expect more and more doctors wanting to have those kind of insights as they're prescribing, although it's not a requirement, but we're seeing more and more people demanding it because nobody wants to feel like a guinea pig. And the other thing that is really happening across the board, people become more aware that we don't have endless budgets as taxpayers or as private individuals for health. There's always some kind of level of resource allocation, budgeting. We're making choices. And when you have pharmacogenetics available, you're making informed choices. So rather than building a drug formulary that says, anything above $10,000 I'm not paying, you looking at medications that would help the person to get better. And the cost savings that we see, it's typically a reduction in drug spend, about 5%. For a large organization, it's pretty substantial number. It adds up quickly. And what we also see is when you give Pillcheck to 100 people who need it, 78% have some change to their dosing or prescription.
Wow, that's substantial. So 78% of people, it would indicate they're either on the wrong dosage or the wrong medication. Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yes.
That says it all. Basically that's saying 78%, almost eight out of 10 people are on the wrong medication or wrong dosage. Substantial.
Right. And as I get older, I don't like talking about it, but the fact is, as we get older, chances are that you'll be prescribed something. And so it's worthwhile, if you need something, to start on the right medication.
Excellent. Well, Veronika, just wrapping up here, again, I just want to thank you so much. And you mentioned earlier how simple the test is. I've done it. Many of our members have done it. It's a simple saliva test that comes to your home. So for any of our Advocate members or any of the public that's interested, please reach out to our health navigation team, our navigation nurses. They have all the details and they can arrange this this test on your behalf. And again, it's very simple, and it's something that I believe in, as you can probably tell personally, and that's why I wanted to have you on today. So again, thank you for all you do to help our members, and thank you for being an excellent partner of Advocate Health.
Perfect. Thank you. It's my pleasure, Kevin, and thank you for inviting me to be a guest here.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of the day. Thanks a lot, Veronika.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning into our podcast today. For all of our listeners, I invite you to visit advocatehealth.com, where you can easily become an Advocate member to take advantage of some of the amazing services we offer. You can also access our latest blogs and listen to some of the best medical advice available on our podcast. Don't forget to grab a copy of my latest book, It's Never Too Late to Be Healthy, that is available to order through our website. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.